If you don't mind, let me put ML on the spot and talk. If you would talk a little bit about the background of the anthology, because I think people here might be interested in how in the world you got Bob Dylan, Eminem, and all sorts of other people in the same volume.
Yeah, and it kind of leads or comes out of this discussion you guys are having now. For me, I mean, one, I never, and of course my critics would agree, set out to be a writer or anything. I mean, it's in our house. I mean, you know, a poem. What's that? My grandparents, you know, only went to seventh grade or something like that. They didn't sit around and read poems to me. They wouldn't have known to say poem. You know, they didn't take me to the library on Saturday. They were wonderful people, but we lived a whole different kind of reality from what most poets and writers, and I think Lolita can understand this too, have had. So for me, I mean, I just started scribbling stuff when I was about 7 and got in trouble for it with the teachers because it was in the books, the school books. They called my grandparents, they had to pay for the book and so forth. And then eventually I figured out, because there was a lot of white space around what I was doing, that it was called a poem. That was in 5th grade when we had a book that had a lot of white space around it. And I said, what's this? Poem? Oh, okay. So it was all really based on these feelings that I had that I was putting on paper. And I think from where I came from, the working class, just that in various ways is how I express myself, through those experiences, through that life and that kind of lifestyle and culture, which actually, you know, Larry Smith, and that starts the story of this, but Larry Smith, you know, he created, you've probably seen it, his and you have too, John, his characteristics of the working class. Mm-hmm. I mean, all those things are true. Things, you know, just like, you know, your grandmother, in my case, screams at you, but not so the neighbors can hear. You know, that kind of stuff. This is, I mean, this may be normal now, but this was like real working class stuff. You know, you can say whatever you want inside the house, but if you say, you know, one word outside of the house, what I just said about Bernice, the neighbor, you're dead. You're dead, ML. You know. So, and that's just part of it, but he has all these characteristics on his website, which was just part of my life. And my wife, and we've been together since we were 14. I know, I'm 20 now. But we've been together since 14, but her dad was a police officer, and she was raised in the same neighborhood and everything. And, you know, and she doesn't really, you know, she's not an academic. She doesn't discuss the working. But I can see the same thing in her life and her beliefs and the way she raised our children and our house and everything. It all comes from the same thing, you know. So that's one part of it. Now, Larry Smith has this Bottom Dog Press. Anything he does, buy. He's not actually sitting here, but Josh's book is from him. And this guy, he came out of the neighborhood where they filmed The Deer Hunter, the mines, and what would you know what I'm thinking of? You must know. Not Matewan, but Mingo Junction. And that's where he was raised. And if you see the movie The Deer Hunter, that's where they filmed it in Mingo Junction. It was supposed to be filmed in Pennsylvania, but it was really in Ohio. And that's the life he lived, like you see in that first half of The Deer Hunter. And so he, even though he became a PhD and all that, which I am not, he, you know, started this press, the Bottom Dog Press, and the Working Dog series or something like that. And so he was my hero when I discovered him many years ago. And so in those early days of teaching my class, which I inherited, I would order books of his and use whatever he had available. Now, what he often did, maybe not anymore, but in the old days, he would only print 1,500 books. And so a couple of my classes through, they were out of print. So I don't know if he still does that or...
No, I think this is a...
Keeps it in print?
Uses print.
Yeah, see, things are different now, but it used to be like that. So I started the idea of, well, I'm Xeroxing half of this stuff in here. I'm going to put a book together. I went to a university press. They liked the idea. I signed a contract. Now, there was no permission money, and that goes to this story. So what did I do? And I'm pretty connected in the literary world. I started to ask the people, many of whom I used their material in the class, if I could, use it. There's no money. Do you mind? Gratis. And everybody in this book agreed to that. Now, I don't know everybody personally. I know most people personally, but I don't hang out. I didn't drive up here with Bob Dylan. And he didn't come to read his poem when we were in L.A. last week. I thought he could have driven in from Malibu to read it, but he
kicked it with Eminem.
Yeah.
Well, Eminem was going to come to the opening party with his friend who kind of manages his thing, but he didn't. But he thought he might make it there. But how can he go out in public anymore? But at any rate, so I did that. I asked all the people that I knew, and I knew Phil Levine very well, and people who could either wrangle permissions from their publishers if they were famous and had contracts like Phil Levine, or people who had control, or they had the control of their own work. And people like Michael Moore, you get to a point like Michael Moore, who is a friend. If you look closely at his books, into his newer books, he does own the copyright to everything. So that's something probably most authors haven't figured out or aren't in a position to, but he does. So he can do whatever he wants to with things like that. So that's how it basically started. There were a few things. I wanted Woody Guthrie, of course, in it, but I do know Woody Guthrie's daughter. So I called her up in New York, and I've met her and been in her place before and all that. And she was more than happy to oblige with what she had control of. I'm good friends with Al Cooper, not Al's, but Al Cooper, who played the organ for Bob Dylan, and we're pretty tight. And he's best friends with Bob Dylan's, not manager, but the guy who runs the Dylan Empire. You'll see his name, Jeff Rosen's his name, in anything related to Dylan. If you go rip open a box set, you'll see Jeff Rosen's name in it. So he called Jeff. Jeff talked to Dylan, and it's kind of a funny story, but it's true. Jeff called me at Wayne State and said, Bob said you could have anything you want gratis. Well, I only wanted the last thoughts on Woody Guthrie. So when he said that, I said, okay, can I have... He said, so what do you want? I said, well, can I have The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll, Union Sundown? And then my working class roots kicked in, and I didn't want to be greedy. So I stopped, and he said, well, fine. Bob said whatever. So that happened like that, and it kind of worked that way with Jack White and Eminem as well, and being in touch with them and having connections. And then, some of the other people, Phil Levine and so on. Now, so that all came through. Now, what happened with the story is the book, the university press freaked out at a point. Not because they had been given something on a silver platter, but which they had been. Because they had a beautiful book like this. It was longer. It even had plays by Baraka. He gave me these plays and stuff. And and it was going to be like a textbook. And at the time, and Whitney might know about this, I've actually never seen this book yet. Maybe Lolita's in it, I don't know. She would tell me. But Oxford University put out this working class American literature book. Are you in it, Lolita? Some of the people in here are, and they didn't tell me, but that's all right. Because I learned something about this, too. So it was a big, fat book, and I didn't know much, but it freaked out Wayne State. It's, we can't compete with Oxford. Oh my God! Oh my God! You can publish it wherever you want. We just can't take this on. This is going to be too. We're going to get killed in the market and all that. I said, okay, fine. So I talked to a few people, and I'm pretty sure Lolita had something to do with it. But I found a few presses that were interested. And again, another miracle thing. Coffee House was very interested, but I never heard from them. So I emailed the editor, and I said, look, dude, I don't even know who you are, but listen to this. I got an offer to publish this book, and I hear you guys want to, but I never heard anything back from you. I'm telling you, in 20 minutes, Alan Kornblum was on the phone. My phone was ringing. I didn't answer it just to be point. And I ended up talking to him in the parking lot at Wayne State and hammering out the deals. There was no written contract or anything. He told me what he could do, but he did at that time. He said it's going to take until 2010. Now, lo and behold, it goes to the point of what you're talking about. Here we are at this very time when there's 98% of America is in one kind of area that we're learning, and things are bad. And so this book comes out, and it's doing very, very well all across the country. I was just in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Santa Cruz last week. Everywhere we go, and hopefully that's true today, and if it could be if each of you buy 5 copies. We sell out the books, and the people in the cities that we go to read and perform. I did tag team with Wanda Coleman at Book Soup last week. It was pretty wild. So that's what happened, and that's how this book sort of came together. And they put it out, and they did a beautiful job with it. And I got people even to blurb it. Peter Coyote, I don't know Peter Coyote, but I know people who know him, so I emailed him, and he wrote back, and he said, love to do it, ML. I'm a blurb whore, he said. So I sent it to him, and before he goes back to Tibet, he blurbs it and sends it in, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, even to the blurbs, it was unbelievable, the support that we got out of that. Now, the thing is one of the first readings on the tour back in later in October, was in Pittsburgh, and the 2 editors of the famed Oxford University book were there. Now, you probably know this. And they're great guys, and I've known them as writers and stuff as great guys. But we started, BSing about the book, and they ended up telling me that, the book didn't sell real well. They never made any money off it. In fact, they ended up putting thousands in for the permission. And I learned that when they said, hey, just between us, how much did Levine charge you? I go, nothing. They go, nothing? It was $1,000 a poem for us. We're still paying on it. They must have, remortgaged the house or something. So that's what I found out. So you see how things are and how they work out. I didn't know anything about this book. I do know some of the people in here are in it. Jim Daniels, Larry Smith's in it. Mm-hmm. And originally, Wayne State, they were putting me through hell as a working class schmo. They said my introduction wasn't intellectual and academic enough. So I called Larry. He wrote me one because he can do that. And it came back. I didn't understand a word of it, but it was great, because that's what they wanted. Well, when Alan said to do it, I said, hell no, man, we want yours, and we want Ben Hamper too, And so that's the story of it. And I think you'd all be better people if you had a copy. Might I say into the camera.